Microsoft! The open source community is ready to send you to your grave! Your tyrannical reign over PC gamers is at an end! Freedom!
Alright, maybe what he meant was freedom from bugs in Linux. Nevertheless, that's a great satire, great spoof on the movie Braveheart with Mel Gibson. I don't know, maybe Mel uses Linux, I'm not really sure. Let's continue.
Is what I would say if I lived with Linus Wallace III over here in Fantasyland where any of that was true. So far, the 1-month Linux Gaming Challenge has been as advertised, a challenge. And in part 2, Luke and I are going to be taking it to the next level by not just gaming on Linux, but by recording and streaming our gameplay to viewers on Twitch. Now, I'd be lying if I said I'm not expecting some speed bumps. With our desktop environment set up, Luke and I have a deceptively short pre-flight checklist of tasks to complete to be streaming ready. We'll need comms to chat and collaborate with our fellow creators, and software that's capable of capturing our gameplay, audio, and face cams.
And obviously we'll need the aforementioned audio interfaces and cameras both working.
We both use Elgato key lights, which we've always controlled using Windows software, so we'll both need to find a workaround for that.
And no points will be awarded for having an ugly or bad sounding stream. It's got to look every bit as legit from a viewer perspective as it did on Windows.
Okay, as far as sounds, awards for sounds, can we give a big award to Arnold Schwarzenegger? Blah, good to be here. Blah. Thank you, Arnold. Thank you.
Immediately, I started overthinking things. Sometimes that's the problem with knowing just enough to be dangerous. I tried to apt-get OBS, the industry standard for desktop capture and streaming, in the terminal, only to discover that Manjaro, the Linux distribution that I'm using, doesn't come with apt because apt is for managing packages on Debian and related OSs.
All right. Problem number 1. He didn't know that Manjaro uses a different package manager. Manjaro, of course, based on Arch, not recommended for beginners, and herein lies the problem. If we had a national standardized Linux desktop for beginners, he probably would not have had this problem. Now, as far as which national distro should we have, to me it doesn't matter if it's based on Debian or Arch or something else, as long as we had a national quality standard to avoid all the problems that this gentleman has and many of us have had in the past. All right, let's continue.
Oops. Making life more difficult, the message that comes up when you try to execute the command doesn't say, hey, you should probably be using Pacman, you dunce. It tries to install some kind of dependency for apt, then just quietly fails and prompts you to do the same thing again when you try to use it. Infinite loop, baby.
By the way, if you guys want to watch the entire video from LTT, there will be a link below in the show notes. I will not play the entire thing here. Let's continue.
A couple of years ago is missing. The control panel looks like it's from 10 years ago, and the interface is kind of confusing. Thankfully, I was able to enable G-Sync on my display, but for whatever reason, you allow it in order to actually turn it on, which you then verify in a completely different tab. And this kind of confusion is not a deal breaker. It's just obvious that the Linux software has never gotten the kind of TLC.
All right, time out here. When is confusion, or when is solving a puzzle or puzzle, when is that never a deal breaker? I think Linus is being very diplomatic and nice, and that is to be commended. But yeah, this is not going well at all. All right, let's continue.
See from the UX team that the Windows software does.
For me, acquiring OBS was no problem. I just got it from the package manager and it was all okay. Once installed though, we noticed something. Window capture on Linux can be a little problematic. We couldn't seem to get it working at all at the start. I had an option for it, but it didn't work, and Linus didn't even have that. But a few days later, I tried it again for a different project, and it worked just fine. I checked in with Linus and his did too. Neither of us know what might have fixed it, but that's cool, I guess.
Yep, been there, done that. Let's continue.
The bigger issue for me ended up being the software that just doesn't exist. There are third-party tools, for example, that allow key remapping. Keyboarding Master is evidently a popular one. But if your peripherals have a manufacturer-provided tool that is used to reconfigure RGB lighting, or the lift-off distance of your mouse, or the sensitivity steps of your DPI button, then get ready to install Windows in a virtual machine, pass those devices through, configure them, and then hand them back over to Linux. Really hard to hide behind that shield when it took me less than 2 days to run into a situation where I had to use it. I mean, at that point, if GitHub is only for developers, then desktop Linux is only for developers. You can't have it both ways.
Interesting perspective, huh?
The most notable issue I had was that my audio devices were just kind of screwy in OBS. My voice came across very unnaturally deep, and it sounded like my mic input had been duplicated. My voice...
Rumor has it that he sounded like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
just feels deep right now. I don't know if I've got something lodged or what.
And
yeah. Chat was pretty convinced that I had set something up incorrectly, and if I was a viewer of my stream, I probably would have said the same thing. I've been using OBS for like 6 or 7 years now, so I had my doubts. I even streamed my OBS settings panel to prove it, but eventually, feeling out of options, I just restarted OBS, and yeah, that solved pretty much everything. Which was kind of frustrating, because I've heard time and time again that you don't have to turn things off and on again to get them working in Linux, but hey, maybe...
Linux has perfected the use of rebooting.
Unfortunately for my camera, however, Canon EOS Utilities doesn't work on Linux. I'd been using that software on Windows for quite a while now to get a live feed from my Canon 70D over USB to my computer. It was flawless and didn't require a capture card.
I think overall the easiest part for me was getting my Camlink 4K up and running.
All right, a couple of things here. If their challenge would have been just a beginner, easy Linux-based operating system, not for gaming, I think they would have had a much more easier time of it. Multimedia and Linux continues to be a challenge. Just as an example, I have 2 versions of OBS in my Ubuntu Mate. Ubuntu Mate is fantastic. Still my Linux gold standard if you want to download something based on Linux. Try to do something, I forget what it was, text scrolling or something. The built-in version, or the version I downloaded, something did not work right. I downloaded the Snap version and it solved the issue. Now, if somebody is coming from Windows Snaps, they're going to say, what are you talking about? Snap sounds like a cookie I give to my kids. Hence, this, potentially lies the confusion for beginners to the world of Linux. It's not that they can't eventually, not figure it out. They can, but look, if you're married, 2, 3 kids, maybe you're a doctor, or a school teacher, and your wife is a doctor, or vice versa, and your kids are in school, you don't have time to go through this like Linus does and his friend are doing here. They have the freedom, as Linus said in the beginning, freedom to basically waste time to figure this out. Most of America, most quote-unquote normal people don't have time. It's not that they're stupid or they're lazy. It is very extremely time-consuming. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about this. If you want to watch the entire video, there's a link below in the show notes. If you really still are curious about Linux, on the potential power of Linux, just pick up a Chromebook. All right, I'll have a link below in the show notes. Chromebooks based on Linux are absolutely fantastic. Easy to use and about as flawless as Linux can be. Nothing is perfect, of course, but if you just want something that just turns on, type in, go where you want to go on the web, and forget about it, as we say in New York, meaning no maintenance, no bugs, then check out a Chromebook. It really is that simple. All right, guys, that's all I have for this one. Thanks for watching. Post your comments below. Take care.